All right, so this vehicle came in, customer's concern is that the vehicle is losing power going uphill. I test drove it, kind of verified what he was talking about, ran codes, it has no codes, but I'm looking at their soot content in their DPF filter. If I could show you right here, their soot content tells me how much soot is built up in their DPF filter, right? So we're at 8.1, we want to be less than 8. Ideally, we want to be at a 3 at most. So what's that telling me right now is that the DPF filter is starting to get clogged up some. Not to the point of failure, but just to the point where we would recommend performing a regen, better flow, better power. So that would explain to me he does have a bit of a restriction in his DPF.
Obviously, that is way overboard for soot content.
Yeah, which I'm surprised that they let it get that high.
Yeah, so that tells me they idle it. It just sits in idles for hours at a time. So there's actually another suggestion we could also provide is a tune for the concern of climbing. We need to do a regeneration, but we can actually we can install a high idle kit, and that'll prevent soot clogging up at idle. So instead of sitting at 700, 800 RPMs, it'll pull it to like 1400. And so this just increases the exhaust flow, which will prevent clogging.
Will it always run that way, or is it like a switch you put on?
In this model, if we get the good kit, you just push it into high beam. Push it into high beam, and I think pull it from high. There's some like little thing you do on the light switch. Pulls it into high, and then you just pull it back, and it drops it into normal idle. That could be definitely a recommendation, but for sure we need to do a regeneration. So then look, I'll show you this. So if you hit the history of it, you can see maybe why it hasn't been regenning, and it's most likely going to say ignition. And this is first like ever, so the successful at the top. Showing all successful. That's So they're just idling it.
Idling?
They're idling it like extended then.
Yeah.
So that means that, so that's terminal 15 is what that's indicating. So that regen it tried to do, it was shut off. The ignition was shut off. This one, there's some DPF fault at that one, some other DPF fault, you know what I mean? So you'll see a lot of times it'll explicitly say ignition was the cause of the cancellation of the regeneration. And this one, this will tell you that it drove like they were on a long drive, so it did a regen. This one, a resume means it was doing one, they parked it, and they went back into the same like long driving cycle, so then it resumed. But that's nice to see that it's been able to self-regen. That's a good thing. Yeah, but that level that's crazy.
Yeah, they just idle a lot.
That's too much idling. So and then this is what you should do though. So do the regen, test drive it, if they buy the both of them, and then we'll load the tune. So let's make sure that we have great output, power output after the regen, and then we'll put the tune in it. If they if it ends up going that way, if they just buy but I would make regeneration the top priority. Make that your #1 job, and then I would do the high idle recommendation and then the tune. And if we go with Nate, I think because of the era that this van is, I think we can get a factory high idle module kit, and that would be preferred because then it's all factory. Everything will mesh together. There is an aftermarket one. I don't remember who makes it, but it's good. It's very good. I think it's Wagner actually that makes it.
This one is pretty straightforward just because there is no actual fault, right? The vehicle's in good shape. Typically when this happens, when the DPF filter starts to fill up, is vehicles that idle a lot, and it's common for these vehicles, especially the ones where people would camp out in or sleep in and stuff like that. They'll idle them. They'll run the car all night, all day, and just be hanging out, so it's not running, right? So then it'll fill up. So what you go to do is just do a regeneration, right, to clean up all the system. And on some of these vehicles, we would even recommend a tune, right, to get a little bit more torque out of the vehicle, so it has a little bit of a get up and go.